Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Zero Gaming here, and today I'm finally going to touch into FR Echo. So FR Echo is just basically FR board, but JP player call it FR Echo just to differentiate between FR enhancement board and then FR board here. So basically, what is FR Echo? To put it simply, I'm putting up a squall example here. You can see that we have a new branch in our character enhancement board here. So aside from your LD Echo, your LD board, your EX board, and your skill 1, skill 2 board, right now you have an FR board, which we'll be calling it FR Echo. So what differences does it make to your character? Putting one example here, you can see that I'm running two FR characters, which is Sid Rain and Quistis, and now I'm using Sid Rain's FR to start it off. And while Sid Rain FR is active, you would think that Quistis may no longer use her FR, given that that's how the situation is in global. But surprise, you can see that she actually is accessible to her own FR. And even better, after using the FR itself, you can see from the 10 here, it doesn't decrease the force time. So essentially, FR Echo allows the unit to be, allows other FR to be used while the main force time is active for the first FR that you use. And every FR use or every FR Echo use in this case will not decrease the force time. So you might wonder how to exactly gain access or how much for you to max out a FR board. So Astos here is the only character that I have maxed out my FR without having to max out his FR board. So essentially you're gonna need 5000 enhancement board, which is gonna be pretty demanding for players that is free to play, especially given how essential the board is when it comes to FR board, since you need 15,000 to max out the force enhancement board. So yeah, another 5,000 here for the FR board, but you can get away by doing this simple trick I learned from Nightingale, credit to him, where you only need, you can see 2,360 to completely max out for them to be accessible for the FR Echo. So yeah, you definitely don't need 5,000. Anyway, before we get into how to utilize Echo, or in other words, how to abuse FR Echo, you need to know that there's multiple types of FR Echo according to me, because that's how I categorize them into how I'm going to use them. But before we get into that, there's two different types of Echo. First, there's the damaging FR Echo, which applies damage, which is the usual FR Echo that you'll be more familiar with. It adds up another 20% on top of the HP damage condition that you have fulfilled. For example, if you're using Squall's FR, maximum you can get 70%, but by using FR Echo, you can get up to 90% if you fulfill all the condition itself. Whereas for non-damaging FR Echo, such as Arif FR, you'll get 30%. And since Arif FR is essentially a supercharging FR skill, so you'll get another 50% additional as well, going up to 80%. But because you're getting a turnover, you get 83% essentially. But yeah, that's the idea. Anyway, there's not much non-damaging FR Echo currently. There's only Arif, and from what we can see, that Minwoo and Penelo are the same thing. But I don't think this is going to be the norm for future characters, because it's really OP, to be honest. So I think it's going to be a little bit more rare, but don't expect too much for this one. But anyway, like I mentioned before, I categorize the FR Echo into different categories. The first one I will talk about is the damage FR Echo. These FR Echoes are normally relegated mainly to deal damage, because as you all know, FR skill has higher HP damage cap. So they're essentially a nuke button regardless of which unit you're going for. But of course, you want to use units such as Squall, for example, that has a very high HP damage cap up for himself, where he can completely produce a very high number when using this FR as a main damage button, instead of having it as a button where you increase the HP damage condition or the HP damage bonus. But yeah, units such as Squall, Noctis, Leo, Sid Rain, Tifa, Vaughn, Zack are units that I would categorize under damaging FR Echo. They do have a pattern though, that either have very strong HP damage cap up, or they have a very strong follow-up to further boost their FR Echo damage. Anyway, we'll be moving on into the next category, where I'll be calling them the Charger FR Echo. these units are, or at least these echoes, are mainly used as a supportive means where you use them to charge the HP damage bonus. Essentially, they are also dealing much more damage than their regular skill, but being their supportive nature and their lack of self HP damage cap and more of a party-wide HP damage cap, it's actually a lot better for this character to provide the HP damage bonus up to the entire party so that your main DPS can capitalize on that with his skill 1 and skill 2 or EXL or LD, not just on his FR. So this unit's examples such as Setzer, Quistis, Iris, Core, Kina, these units are the prime example of them being used as mainly to charge the HP damage bonus. And lastly, the Instaturn FR Echo, which is essentially the best FR Echo that we can get in the game currently. There's only 4 units that I recall, plus Pain, but Pain is mainly because of her BT attack. If I'm not wrong, because I never used Pain before, but the way I see it, her skill has instant turn mainly because of her BT effect. So this FR Echo is best used in the sense where you can capitalize their instant turn to boost your FR gauge or FR HP damage bonus as much as possible in their earliest or fastest time. Units such as Arif, Ursula, Rem. Baltier is a special case because Baltier is a DPS, so you can actually relegate his FR later into a DPS instead of a HP damage bonus charger. But yeah, the idea behind these 3, especially Arif, is just so good, and they are easily swap out or swap in as the next character or the friend unit to maximize the HP damage bonus. One of the prime examples that I did before is having Arif in my party, and then after using her FR Echo, I swap her out with Ursula and use Ursula's 2 FR Echo, and then going into Ursula's BT plus finisher right away, and then my BT characters can actually capitalize from all this sweet HP damage bonus up. But anyway, these are the 3 categories of the FR Echo that I would categorize, and mainly why I do this is because if you want to abuse an FR Echo, you need to understand, for me at least, you need to understand which character has stronger FR as a attacking FR and which character has an FR that is more suitable for charging your HP damage bonus. So essentially about abusing FR Echo, the easiest part is selecting a main FR that is easy to fulfill, which is party-wide friendly, everyone can fulfill, so that other characters, when they use their FR Echo naturally, it will gain a lot of HP damage bonus. And of course, you want FR that actually has HP damage cap up so that it's an extra additional bonus since you're about to enter the force gauge or force time where everyone is able to use Echo to push it up to 999%. So to further go higher, you have to rely on other means such as HP damage cap out. So yeah, these examples are like Squall, like Shintoto, Vaughn, Anacro, Aranea, Zac, all these examples. Also, my ways of approaching a stage with FR Echo relies on 3 different categories as well. You can see what I wrote here. It's early BT phase into FR Echo, and then FR Echo into BT phase, which is essentially just inverted, and then the last one is FR Echo into BT phase and into another FR Echo. So what I'm trying to say here is each of this strategy actually has a different approach to it, and there has their means and their pros and cons. Like for example, the early BT phase FR Echo, what it means that is you want to enter the BT phase of a selective character so that that character can charge up the HP damage bonus herself, and then you want other characters to capitalize on this charged HP damage bonus with their own echoes. So you leave the echoes for the last, for example. This strat doesn't actually require you to have a party-wide friendly FR condition as long as the unit that entered the BT phase with this FR is actually capable of charging it herself. But the problem with this strat is that it might produce the lowest damage as compared to the other 2 strats because you're charging your FR gauge early using all your force time while leaving your echo last as just the only damage means. So I'm going to show you an example here. I'm running Rinoa, Quistis and Squall here, and you can see that I'm actually having Rinoa's FR active. So in this case, Rinoa's condition is having the party below a certain, below maximum HP, which everyone has it, but it requires the party to also have a magic attack for them to fulfill the condition. Since Squall and Quistis are melee, that doesn't actually fulfill Rinoa's condition. So that itself is what I'm aiming for them to not fulfill Rinoa's condition, so that you can see, regardless of whether or not they're fulfilling, their main job over there is just to produce more damage with the FR Echo. So yeah, you can see I'm spamming renewals, I'm charging all the HP damage gauge, and we're going up to 867%. And you can see Quistis is just using her FR Echo, and then Squall, and then renewals with the HP damage. Of course, if you are using another character here with FR Echo, you can just use FR Echo here instead of using the HP attack or using up another force time. So essentially, this is going to result in the boss dying from Squall's FR Echo. But yeah, this is essentially the approach from what I mentioned before. I don't know about you guys, but from what I see here, this definitely has some potential, but quite limited in terms of when it comes to total amount of damage. It doesn't produce the highest damage, but yet it has a secure system where if you don't want to use your FR Echo because you don't believe the boss will die from that, you might want to just save it until the next force time. It is possible since you're just putting all your force time at the last moment. Alright, for moving on into the next one, you have the second strategy, which is FR Echo into BT phase. This is essentially the most popular strats because it's really easy to set up. You just need to use up all your Echo and then enter your BT at at least 7 or 6 force time, so that you can completely use your BT phase with those sweet HP damage bonus that you capitalize with your Echo. So the pros of this one is that it's the easiest to set up as compared to the other strat like I mentioned before. And since you're relying on a lot of HP damage bonus, even non-DPS character can shine in their BT phase. For example, Aloha, I actually run her in Assault stage, and I use her BT and her FR, and then I use this strategy, and it works completely because even though Aloha doesn't have a lot of damage herself, with the HP damage bonus that she gained from all those FR Echo, it's more than enough for her to win the stage. The problem with this particular strat is that it's an all or nothing run because you're using up all your FR Echo very early in the force time, so you're not giving a second chance for yourself to screw it up. You have to finish the boss in your first force time since you completely depleted all your FR usage. And if you're using a character with limited, or should I say short BT effect, for example Cloud, for example Yuffie, and you're using their own FR, so you want them to be like FR, and then BT phase, BT finisher, and then entering into BT phase for them to have the maximum amount of damage within their BT phase. And this can be quite tricky to pull it off since it requires quite a perfect setup or your perfect lineup to actually completely do this without having to rely on Lunar Flare's call. So yeah, I think that's one of the issue. But anyway, here's a one example where I use Yuffie's FR twice using Lunar Flare's call like I mentioned, so that I can set up more easily. And I follow up with all those characters FR Echo to use up the HP damage condition. Charlotta might not be the best character here because she doesn't completely fulfill Yuffie condition, but anyway, it's more than enough for me to nuke out the stage with Yuffie's BT. So I'll leave it up to you to take a look here. strat is actually the most complicated strat here, which is FR Echo into BT phase into FR Echo. This is actually the hardest to fulfill because of how you need to set up your echoes with your chargers, like RF, like RAM for example, and then you have them enter into, you have your DPS enter into their BT phase while having his or her echo still there and using at the last second after you came out of your BT phase, after you finish up charging everything up. So this is a balance between the first and the second strat, but it's the hardest to pull it off considering the fact that you want units such as RAM or Seed Rain with turn manipulation so that you can pull your BT phase character forward so that they can use the FR Echo on the last second. Like I said, the best part about this one is that it can deal the highest damage with the right timing, especially given the fact that HP Gate was a thing later down the line, but sadly they don't return anymore. But yeah, anyway, the hardest part is this is really hard to set up. These are the examples of the run that I run here. Basically, I'm saving Squall's Echo for last as well as Ram. Ram has a follow-up, so she's actually really good as a damaging FR Echo as well. But I'm only using Iris FR Echo completely so that she can charge the gauge before, she can charge the HP damage bonus before Squall enter into his BT phase. I can't run the same stage as compared to the other two examples here because the stage is just so weak and the characters completely nuked them out, so I went for a tankier stage with Core Intertwined Will here. But yeah, you can basically get the idea and I'll let you see the entire run here. Anyway, now that you can understand a little bit on how FR Echo works, I would like to further talk about something that I already talked many times here, which is how non-FR board characters, essentially Penelo, unit is going to stay relevant throughout the FR Echo era. First of all, you want easy to fulfill FR condition. And of course, you want relevant kit outside of their own echoes, such as Penelo's BT phase is one of the examples. So I'm going to show, instead of just telling you how it's going to be relevant, I'm just going to give examples here. I'm going to take between Penelo's and Garnet's FR. Alright, here's an example. So Penelo's, essentially if you're using Penelo's FR, then you have two party members remaining as their FR Echo. So you get 153% from the first FR from Penelo's FR usage, and then you gain 98%, 98%, 98%, 90% because 75% is from fulfilling Penelo's condition, and then 20% is using the Echo, and then 3% is passing turn. So you get 545% of free HP damage bonus. This is just a free HP damage bonus. It means that this doesn't decrease your force time here. And for Garnet, since you're using her FR, it also means that you have 3 party members that has FR Echo instead of 2. So starting off with 123, you gain a 73% because other characters can only gain 50% of Garnet's Garnet's FR condition. This is provided they completely fulfill her condition, which is applying thunder or water elemental attack and batteries the entire party. So again, it's not a really easy condition to fulfill, but even if you completely fulfill it, you only gain 50%. So with Echo, you gain up to 70, and passing a turn means that you gain up to 73%. So 73%, you can see that 73 from the 2 Echoes of the party member, then 93 from Garnet herself, and then another 73% from another 2 characters. You only gain up to a 508%. And of course, I'm using Garnet example because she's going to be the first FR that we get, FR Echo. And then the next one is going to be Warrior of Light, which is not really the main comparison because Warrior of Light is off turn. So let's take the next one, for example, 7FR. So 7FR is basically the same as Penelo, where you can gain 75% if you completely fulfill her condition. So having 7 as the main FR, it also means that, like Garnet, you're going to have 3 characters that have FR Echo. So 123%, and then following up by a 98%, 98%, 98%, 98%, 98%, and you gain up to 613%, which is obviously higher than Penelo. But what if you run Aerith in here? Because Aerith is the only unit that has an FR that doesn't have any bravery attack and doesn't have any HP attack. So it's a non-damaging FR, and therefore it is harder to fulfill condition where it requires for you to hit the enemy. So both Garnet and 7th FR requires you to attack the enemy, so they won't benefit as much from Aerith FR aside from getting just the extra HP damage bonus up of the instant supercharging with 83%? Yeah, 83%. So taking that into comparison, we can see that Penelo will benefit a lot more because Penelo actually gained 158% every time Aerith used her FR Echo. If I recall correctly, if I'm not wrong, the only unit that actually has their condition similar to Penelo, which is very easily fulfilled by from Aerith FR Echo, is actually Ursula, which is not going to be very early until later down the line. So the only closest one I can think of is actually Squall, with one of his condition having to deal melee attack, which is not fulfillable by Aerith FR, but the other condition is having a stack based buff. So that one is easy, so I'm just going to put Squall here as comparison, so for you to understand a little bit better. You can see that even with one condition fulfilled by Aerith and a lot more units being in the FR Echo, it still doesn't gain as much HP damage bonus as compared to Penelo with Aerith. Of course, this is not going to take Squall's FR HP damage bonus, HP damage cap out into consideration because Squall obviously has that 50% HP damage cap out, which makes his FR even better. But here is just making you an idea where we come to a conclusion that using a main FR Echo unit doesn't automatically means that you gain the higher HP damage bonus as compared to using a non-FR board unit but has very relatively easy condition to fulfill. Like all the previous tests that I did, Rinoa actually fulfilling her own condition so easily, it can actually be very useful in FR Echo era, considering the fact that you can just use FR Echo to slightly boost the HP damage and then have Rinoa just go ham into it, especially given the fact that her so-called strict condition is not actually strict at all if you have a magic attacker, since she just brings down everyone's HP anyway. But yeah, that's just a basic idea of what I want you to look at before jumping into conclusion that non-FR board unit will be benched once FR Echo era arrives. So using that as a fact, I can still say that don't worry about your pulls. All these relatively recent characters or upcoming characters that we'll be getting prior to FR Echo era, not just Penelo herself, is still going to be very relevant. As long as you're planning to use them, you can definitely work around their kit. For example, I see many runs with Jessie FR, and the funny thing is Jessie FR is not the best easy to fulfill condition FR, and yet I still see a lot of run with her. So yeah, like I said, all this character will still stay relevant, so don't worry too much about being benched or entering into an era where all this character may be benched. That is just how power creeps work. It works the same every single time. And it's kind of funny that we always come into this kind of discussion. You want to save as much unit as you can, or you want to save as much resources as you can, be my guest. For me, I just play the game because I really like to pull characters. I don't pull them because of meta, I just pull them because they're fun to play with, or they're at least my favorite characters. So yeah, I think each player has a way to go into it. I don't want to diss your playstyle. But I just want to correct the fact that Penelo it's not going to be benched just because FR Echo exists. She's going to be benched later down the line because stronger supportive character or stronger FR exists like 3 or 6 months down the line. But yeah, that's always going to be a thing because of power crap. But anyway, enough ranting here. So thank you guys again for watching. I hope you guys at least gained some insight on what I talk about FR Echo here. And again, I'm not dissing anyone. I'm just pointing out my point of view here, and hopefully you can share your point of view down in the comments below so that we can discuss more about it. If I do miss any important details, or if you have any question that need answering, just comment down there below. If I realize I missed a lot, I will put up a video and talk about it again. But regardless, this is just my take on FR Echo. It might be a little bit confusing for non-JP players though, because like me, I actually didn't really understand the mechanics behind FR Echo about how to fully utilize it until I familiar myself with a certain playstyle. Again, please take my advice like a grain of salt. There's no certain way or 2 ways or 3 ways to play around it. There's just your way to play around it, and just familiar yourself with the game mechanics and just try to understand how to fully utilize the Echo yourself and figure out your own playstyle. But this is just my take, and I hope that it will make you figuring out a lot easier. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.